live on imavl.com, broadcasting from Lexington Avenue Brewery in Asheville, North Carolina. I'm Joe Kendrick, on for the debut of the video version of What It Is, and we're wrapping up our show today talking about some venues. And we talked earlier about some concert memories and some favorite experiences that we had, and this is a little bit in that direction as far as some memories of favorite venues that are long gone or still around, but also talking about some of the scene itself, some of the scene in Western North Carolina and specifically Asheville, which has a lot of key strengths. And we'll start with you, Jay.
Yeah, you know, I think we're really blessed and lucky to live here. Asheville is not only is it a beautiful place and an amazing spot here on Earth and in America, but as far as music goes, there's just a very vibrant and organic and active music scene that's going on here. And I personally hold the belief that has a lot to do with the audience and the people of the town as much as it does the musicians. A lot of people, when they talk about music scenes, think, oh, it's because there's a whole lot of really great musicians. But there could be great musicians anywhere, but if there's not an audience for them to play for, then you're not really going to be able to create or cultivate a scene. And I think that the biggest asset and benefit of the entire Asheville musical concept is that there are people in this town that love music, and they love to go out to all the amazing venues that we have in town, and support music. And I think we're really lucky to have that. This past year on New Year's Eve, if I can get all my memory right, most of the venues were full of local bands. Two Bob Crew was at the Orange Peel. The Booty Band was at the Music Hall. Acoustic Syndicate was at Grey Eagle. And there were several other shows going on, and all of them were sold out. We're talking a total ticket sales of probably somewhere 5,000-6,000 for all the venues combined. And that's just an amazingly telling sign. Now, granted, it was New Year's Eve, but that's not actually that uncommon for 2 or 3 venues, you know, in the town to be like that. And I just think it's a really beautiful thing, and it's a testament to the quality of the venues that we have. When I first moved to Asheville, the very first concert that I ever saw here was John McLaughlin at Be Here Now in the early 90s, and it was just not only was it a mind-numbingly beautiful concert, but that was a magical venue that really was kind of the start of the genesis of what became the Asheville music scene. Is when Be Here Now got down there and really started bringing in giving a world-class venue places for people like John McLaughlin to come to Asheville, North Carolina and play. Now, I know there's history goes back a lot deeper, but I think the modern era starts there.
And that was really before there was anything downtown, hardly anything. Downtown was completely different scenario than
Lexington Avenue was boarded up. Yeah. Like there were boarded up shops everywhere. And my personal favorite from back in the day was Vincent's Ear, which is now it was behind what is now Mela. Back in that courtyard back there, it's nothing. I think I can't even. It's like a storage unit now, but it was your perfect dive. It sounded horrible. It smelled bad. Music was always way too loud. You know, going to see lots of Drug Money concerts there, never hearing a word that anybody was saying. You never would know. But that was what we're talking about here are the things that lead to the genesis of where we are today, which is a really vibrant community with, I mean, more venues and more opening every day, you know, in this town. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
Well, I've only been here for about 5 or 6 years, so I'm not lucky enough to have experienced everything from what Jay's talking about. But I would say currently my favorite venue would be the Grey Eagle. I don't really know how to describe it. Something about it, just like, you know, the Orange Peel is cool. And I love the Orange Peel. I've played there a few times, but something about the Grey Eagle, just especially with the couch in the front, and you know, little things like that makes it special to me.
There's something about a venue that has to feel somewhat like a second home, I think.
Yeah.
You have to feel that completely much, you know, some sort of ease of movement, and you have to have those qualities,
yeah.
Even if the sound is horrible.
Yeah, well, the Grey Eagle sound is amazing, and also I feel like, as far as the stage to audience connectivity, I feel like that's one of the best rooms in town for an artist to feel the vibe of the audience and to feed off each other's energy. I think that's a good spot for that. And this is not specifically for Asheville, but there is this random place in Starkville, Mississippi that we go through. And it's a dive. They serve pizza, hole in the wall, and it's also attached to a motel. And, you know, you load in and you're like, I don't know what it's going to be like tonight, you know. But every time we play there in Starkville, Mississippi, it is one of the best shows of the tour. Everyone just loves music there, similar to Asheville, where everyone just loves music. Everyone comes out, and usually when you go to build a scene, you have to start from the ground up, and maybe no one's going to be there. Maybe 5 people are going to be there, and you have to keep building upon that. But for some reason in that town, the first time we were there, even people, were kind of hungry for it. And there's a lot of little towns like that. Also, New Bern, North Carolina, is one of those towns where it's just seems pretty random for a touring act to go through New Bern.
Yeah.
But, it's a spot where the people there are so hungry for new things. I think in Asheville we're kind of spoiled in that sense, where there's bands doing their thing everywhere, and everyone in a lot of ways I think gets really used to that. Like, we're very comfortable with that idea. But there's a lot of little towns like Starkville, Mississippi, and New Bern, North Carolina, that also have that awesome vibe. They might not necessarily have a scene there, but everyone loves music enough to go out and support. And I think that's a really cool experience I've had, is going to those towns.
It's kind of rare, really, for towns to embrace original music. Mm-hmm. It seems that a scene often has to mature to a point where it can support that kind of thing. And there are a lot of places that are, Asheville has some of those advantages of having a walkable downtown where you can walk around. If you don't like one thing, you can go see another. It also has a lot of original acts that are supported by the community and are also playing out beyond town, that have fans that kind of cross-pollinate, where the bands will play together enough and trade off, and their fans won't have one little niche over here, one little clique over here, and then they never meet. Those sorts of things are really not all of that common out there in other towns and other music scenes.
I think the one slight drawback, or something that's Asheville's going to have to deal with eventually, is cost of living and rising rents. That doesn't affect bands that make good money and draw crowds, but it does affect avant-garde music scenes and experimental music scenes where, it's week by week living. I'm very excited for the Apothecary, which is a smaller venue that is now going to be in the YMI Cultural Center. And I'm not sure if you guys read about that. And they're doing a lot of experimental electronic music and drone and noise music and free improv. And I really hope they make a go of it, because in that world, what goes on in Asheville is somebody puts on a bunch of shows for about 6 months, and then the place either gets shut down because they're trying to do it in the back of somewhere, or it's someone's basement, or it's literally like someone's basement, like an apartment they're renting. So in that world, I do feel like there is a bit there. I think there is a bit of an issue there, because when you only got like 15, 20 people going to a show, you're only going to make so much. But that is something that is a bit of an issue, I find.
I think that another thing that is it's kind of like a blessing and curse situation, which can be seen as downfall in a lot of ways with the Asheville music scene, is everyone is so receptive, but in a lot of ways it's like everyone likes everything almost, So say if there's 10 bands playing that are local, majority of the population that's going to go to those shows, they all like all of those bands. So then they have to really decide what they're going to do. It's not like, maybe like bigger cities where there's enough of scenes for different types of music to where people will go out, like all the jazz fans will go here, all the rock fans will go there. This is a cool thing here because everyone is very open and likes everything. But then sometimes, it gets really interesting when you have, 5 bands playing the same night. Well, New Year's, that's New Year's. But, sometimes it's kind of hard to get your crowd out there, just because your crowd is my crowd's your crowd and your crowd's his crowd. A lot of times there are some people who branch out from that, but I feel like, Asheville is so supportive that a lot of times everyone really supports everything, and that gets really interesting sometimes.
We just need to play together.
Well,
put everybody in the same room and have a good time.
One thing that is at least one small disadvantage for Asheville is it's a fairly small town that's on a mountaintop, and you've got to bring in, for bands that tour from elsewhere to play here to a sizable enough audience, sometimes that can come into play. I've heard people talking about that. But also, with as many venues as there are here, it's amazing to me that there can be so many of them that have survived as long as they have, because it's not easy running a venue at all. It's a tough racket.
It's a rough business, and it's a constant discussion between the venue owners in town and the musicians in town. There's this constant struggle over money and compensation and what art is worth and what venues have to realistically charge in order to make money. It's a constant struggle. It's the patron artist struggle, I guess, that has been going on forever. It's just now in this modern capitalist vein where you're only worth some. I've heard it said where you're only worth as many tickets as you can sell, things like that. So it gets a little bit of a struggle, and we have a lot of venues, and a lot of musicians. So it becomes a very interesting debate, and it's something that has been talked about a lot and is going to continue to be talked about. I think it's part of the growing pains of something like this. Is dealing with those issues. I think for me, what I really enjoy about a good venue and what I really look for is I like sound quality. I don't like things that are, even though I'm a musician, I don't like things that are too loud. I like to be able to hear things I like to hear sound articulated well. We're sitting in the back room at the lab right now, which is a smaller room. It's a 90-person capacity, but the sound system in here is phenomenal. And if you've got an engineer that knows what they're doing in here, you can really get good sound in here. Some of our bigger venues don't quite have that same level of quality. It's all about figuring out how to make things work inside the rooms that you have. The Gregel's a good example where they've adapted the PA that they have in order to best suit the space that they have. But then you look at venues like the Orange Peel where they're serving a different master. They need to have sound systems that are scaled for the types of acts that they have, not necessarily the room that they are. For example, they've got all these massive subs because the DJs need the subs. And when you have electronic music shows, you want that but when you get like more acoustic sounding shows, you don't necessarily quite need all that much power. And you got to have engineers who really know what they're doing. And the crew over there, they're excellent, but it's a very, very fine line. I also like to be able to sit down personally. I'm an observer.
That sitting down thing is funny. I ran into that moving here. It kind of annoys me after a while. I guess it's all right for an acoustic show or something, but there's so many shows that go in and people are just like, they're sitting on the floors. It's like, get up off your butts and come on, stand up and do something. Start moving. I don't know. Just something that always irks me.
I think I have to say I'm relatively new in town, so I don't have long experience with the venues here. I've been here 2 years. But one thing that's impressed me in terms of the sound is that I've never been in a town with so many venues that know what to do with acoustic instruments. I don't know why that is such a difficult thing for sound people everywhere to know what to do with an acoustic guitar or a banjo. But there seem to be at least a few people in Asheville that know how to deal with it. And, I had a friend come here to play a show at the lab from Seattle. There were maybe 5 people in here. She plays piano and has a cellist with her. But the sound guy walked around every point in the room and made sure it sounded perfect everywhere. And it really did. And her music's really nuanced. And I was just really impressed. But at the same time, I also felt like, this is Asheville, and there are a couple of different sound people that I know that would do that, to make sure the nuances are brought forward.
It's a difficult thing to do, but acoustic music is a huge part of the history of the music scene here. It's evolving constantly. But if you go back to the roots of Appalachian folk music that came here and then bring it all the way up to modern times, there's been a lot of great bands that have come out here with an acoustic tradition, and so people it goes with the territory, if you will.
It's great to see the venues cater to it and not try and change it to fit a rock and roll crowd or get the bigger name bands outside of the acoustic scene.
Well, that'll about do it for this first live video edition of What It Is on imavl.com. Jay, Jonathan, Kim, Justin, thanks so very much for being here. It's been a pleasure. Thanks to everybody at Lexington Avenue Brewery for hosting us, as well as the Independent Arts and Music of Asheville for producing the show. Thanks to Josh Blake and Scott Reese. We will look forward to doing this again. Come back next time.